With the governorship and House of Assembly elections extended by a week, party supporters now have more time to campaign for their candidates. For the governorship election in Lagos, the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria and some security experts are throwing their weight behind Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu for a second term in office. They describe his administration as operational and people-oriented, especially with his 6-point agenda like traffic management and transportation, health and the environment, education and technology, making Lagos a 21st century economy, entertainment and tourism, and security and governance. Joining us in the studio is the past president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, Olumide Akintayo. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Good morning,
Good
viewers.
to see you. Good morning.
Now, why is the society, your society, throwing its weight behind Babajide Sanwo-Olu?
Well, I think we need to get a few things straight. It's not just about the Pharmaceutical Society throwing its weight behind the governor. I think there are a few things you have to look at. Everybody, any average person, you do not need to be partisan. You do not need to be aligned to appreciate that Lagos, in the last 24 or thereabout years, has been work in progress. There's, it's probably, I have visited over 30 states of the Federation, and I can say that this is probably the only states you visit, and every time you come around, you see there is obvious symphony of progress. From road construction, it can be much better than what we have. A tendency or inclination towards developing ocean economy, rail infrastructure, and you can go on and on and on. So it is obvious that you have successive administrations who have done a few things to add value to the lives of the people. Lagos, and you must continue to look at the peculiar status of Lagos. The smallest landmass, over 22 million Nigerians to cope for, so population density is highest, and that makes you vulnerable to security, factions, and all of that. You know that some people around there came up with a social security trust fund long ago, even before we began to have the full latitude of challenges in security and all that. So, of course, there are things to care about in Lagos. But having said that, the reality too is that Lagos needs to improve on quite a number of things. I am a political activist of some sort because we follow political trends, and after the February 25 elections, for instance, when you analyze the results that was turned in Lagos, for me it was a wake-up call. It was a reality check of some sort. Yeah, it is good to build all the bridges. It's good to have all the infrastructure and all of that. But there are things, of course, because if you want to achieve another 4-year term for Governor Sanwo-Olu, you must draw attention to things that are certainly not right in the system.
What are those things that are not right?
Yeah, let me try to analyze a few things that we feel are not right. And I like to start from the health sector, where we belong, for instance. You know, generally, we've always talked about discriminatory policies in the health sector.
Also,
Oh, yes. For instance, you have a situation where pharmacists, for instance, you have approved a consultant cadre status by the National Council on Establishment. And some of the dramatic personnel who made that possible were chieftains of Lagos State government, the head of service, commissioner of or staff, and their permanent secretaries. But somehow it's been impossible to implement that for workers, for pharmacists in Lagos, because a few people who have used all the network available have continued to negate and jeopardize it. I can go on and on and on. You have a situation whereby you pay a category of workers. You're familiar with brain drain in the health sector. And Lagos State, for instance, in a bid to stem that tide, comes up with incentivizing personnel in the health sector. And then you come up with retention allowances, and you give that to only physicians. You have forgotten all the other people. These things, I must say, they are not right. Great as Lagos State is, and I submit this with a sense of responsibility. And I think this is one of the militating bins against Governor Sanwo-Olu in this second term bid. You know, in governance, the relationship management protocols are key. They are germane, they are very important. One of the weakest points of successive administrations in Lagos is that they do not take maximal advantage of rules of engagement with groups, whether they are professionals, whether they are market women, in my candid opinion. Let me tell you why. I've been a representative of pharmacists for about 35 years in this country. In that period, I've been privy to be part of delegations that have visited more than 5, 6 heads of government, presidents, from late Abacha, and then in this democracy to Obasanjo, to Jonathan, who I visited. I was president of Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. I saw Jonathan more than 2, 3 times. I have been part of delegations that have visited President Buhari 2, 3 times. It has not been possible to see any governor in Lagos State in 24 years, apart from Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that we had audience with sometimes in 2000, 23 years ago. I met former Governor Fashola, great man, at the function sometimes. And it was like, oh, you based in Lagos? I said, yes. So how come we don't? I said, because you people in Lagos are very big. You don't allow people to see you. And there are consequences for distance. I guess those are some of the things Governor Sanwo-Olu is, if things are not managed well, God forbid, might pay for. Now, I look at a situation whereby, and people are complaining. So let me move away from the health sector. If you look at the tax regimen in Lagos, if you look at the type of fees people pay for building plan approvals, that's why if you look at the results in the local government at Ketiosa, it was a complete disaster. Because tariffs have been increased from between 400 to 800% in some of those places for building plan approvals, for tax. In fact, the tax administration in Lagos needs a whole range of reforms because it is grounded in a lot of arbitrariness and, of course, impunity. I have been a victim, and I do not want to say more than that. But having said these things, I will try to highlight some of these challenges. The reality still remains that, and I have tried to check out the lineup, of candidates.
Right.
The truth is that I think Governor Sanwo-Olu still stands well above these other fellows. I have never met him. I don't need to meet him. These are realities. A time comes in the life of every system where you have to be very practical and real. Lagos is a trillion budget state. It is the economic basket of Nigeria. It is presently rated 5th largest economy in Africa as a standalone state. Now, some people built these states to attain those heights. I think they deserve some commendation. I think they deserve to be rewarded. It is very important, and we must say this, that we cannot afford to place Lagos in the hand. Lagos must always be in the hands of safe, tested, and experienced people. And I have tried, and I have tried within the limits of what is available to run critical appraisals and evaluation of the CVs of some of these people. These are the people you are branded top 3. I do not see much It might just be because I do not have access. But I have seen the credentials of a Sanwo-Olu, the impressive pedigree, good antecedents. Emmanuel was head of treasury in the private sector in a bank, rose to become director, deputy GM or something. I mean, that's top management echelon in banking. And in public sector management, he hasn't done too badly as a former special assistant in the governor's office, two-time commissioner, one-time CEO of LSDPC, probably one of the biggest parastatals in Nigeria at state and federal level. And then he's moved to be governor. He's already in the saddle. Of course, if he's not doing well, there's nothing wrong if you want to change it. But I think Lagos is working. It can be better. We can all do. I mean, that's why I try to highlight some challenges that we have observed. Lagos is working. And I think we should not attempt to derail it, especially because I have not seen capacity. I have not seen competence. The way
There are those who would say that if you do not give these people the opportunity, you may not see the capacity, their capacity.
Of course, life is about options. Whatever we choose to say this morning, people will always take positions. I am only saying, I'm only trying to say, yes, give people an opportunity. Yeah, but Lagos is also not a place, it's not an experimental laboratory. It is not a place, it is not a training ground for anybody. So, because like we said earlier on, you're dealing with about 22 million citizens. So one moment of incompetence can cost not just Lagos State, but Nigeria something very, very significant. So fundamentally, you have to be sure, you have to insist that only the best gets the job in Lagos.
All right. Of course, it's common knowledge. It's quite straightforward to say that a state like Lagos shouldn't be given to a greenhorn.
Yeah.
However, when you have a state like Lagos with a very huge youth population, and that youth population is contributing immensely to the economy of the state, in the digital space, in the SMEs, and startups and so on. And we've seen how young people are trailing the blaze and are trying to ensure that they work out things in that aspect, and they're making all the gains that they want to make for themselves. In a situation like that, where you can rely on new ideas, fresh ideas from young people, how do you reconcile that in the case of Lagos that's not supposed to be given to a greenhorn and young population that can bring fresh ideas on the table?
Life comes in dispensations. That's why even if you decide to read a book this morning, you probably will start from chapter 1 before you get to the end. Now, experience is not something, it's not something you imbibe. It's not something that comes in a jiffy. It's a gradual thing. One of the things, and I think this is also one of the challenges I should have listed or highlighted about the Sanwo government. The government of Lagos needs to do a lot more in terms of reapproachment and appeasement of young people. Just like you said, we must maximize the potentials of our youth. They are our heroes in the year. They will be our heroes in the years to come. I think the postponement of the elections, for instance, to March 18, might just be a blessing to those who know a thing or two about time management. You must work out comprehensive reforms. Governor Sanwo must talk a little more. In fact, I had expected a state broadcast where you're talking about new opportunities your second tenure is going to bring to the youths of Lagos. One of the fantastic opportunities, apart from the huge market you have in Lagos, is the human resource potential in talented people. Look at what young people are doing with music. Look at sports development and all of that. I think in the days ahead, that you need to bring together your experts so that you're telling young people what can be done. In the pharmaceutical sector, for instance, we had an interaction some 4 years ago with Governor Sanwo-Olu. He consulted the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, Lagos State branch. And one of the things we solicited was, look, this is the most strategic state. If you understand the dynamics in the health sector, you will appreciate that in terms of contributions to national GDP, pharmacy as a profession is the one that has the greatest potentials, because of most of the health commodities that can bring resources and all of that are in our sector. Do you know, for instance, if the Lagos State government decides, even if you don't have the land mass here, to get land somewhere as part of agrarian revolution, go and invest heavily in starch, production of pharmaceutical grade starch, you'll be creating a lot of opportunities for young people who want to do well. We must reorientate our youths on the part of entrepreneurship.
What will starch
so
be used How central is starch to...
Oh, yes. That's where I was going to. And we said, you must have a faculty of pharmacy at the Lagos State University. They have announced the establishment of one. But I think the spirit is still wretched. Because if you want to succeed... In fact, modern pharmacy schools now have a collegiate status. That's what you have in Nafe Babalola University. The potentials are huge. PharmTech, that's pharmaceutical technology and pharmaceutics. If you ask for the potentials of pharmaceutical grade starch, virtually all the industries, if you're thinking of industrial revolution in Nigeria, need pharmaceutical grade starch. You need it in the formulation of most solid dosage forms, tablets, capsules. You need it in the paint industry. You need it in breweries. And these are, in the food and beverages industry, you need a lot of pharmaceutical grade starch. So the potentials are unlimited.
Yeah, but if we see it from that perspective, because if I understand what you're saying, it looks like it's business.
Oh, yes.
And if you're going into agriculture and you're talking about producing starch for production of pharmaceuticals and all of those materials and products, it is more of a business. How is the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria wooing companies to invest in that regard if this is very important and very core to the chain of the businesses that or the products that you
have raised something very fundamental too. That is another area Lagos State needs to address.
Why should it be Lagos State?
No, let me explain. It must start with Lagos.
Why?
Lagos State has to create a conducive environment for businesses to thrive. If you are offering people land in billions of range, if you are overtaxing, if you are overburdening people with tax regimes, nobody will come here. The biggest beneficiary of the seemingly high-handedness of Lagos State in that regard is Ogun State. That's why a lot of businesses are moving to Agbara Industrial Estate and Anota. So Lagos State is actually where it's one of the things Lagos State has to address. The enabling environment to run business needs to be a lot more conducive.
But has the association tried to engage this with regards to?
I just told you that Lagos State government officials don't see anybody. Unfortunately, I told you about the industrial challenges with our hospital pharmacists. If you write Lagos, nobody replies you. In the event they have meetings with you, they don't follow, they do not actualize what they promise. I was part of a delegation that visited I think they had the special advisor or assistant labor. They brought in some permanent, 3-4 permanent secretaries. They brought one chap, the CMD of the teaching hospital and all that. And we had a session of almost 3-4 hours. And nothing has come out of that. This year they have had 2 sessions. Nothing. Let me compare and contrast. Now, compare and contrast what Lagos is doing with what some other state governments are doing. We were at conference. We met the Edo State governor earlier this year, who promised a huge parcel of land for some of these things I'm discussing with you. Ebonyi State's governor, Dave Umahi, has created an industrial park specifically targeted at the pharmaceutical industry. But Lagos State carries on as if it is the one that will do you a favor if you're going to have any inch of land.
Yeah,
I know Lagos is a little different.
No, but the point there is, because when you started, you talked about how Lagos is the fulcrum and is doing well in so many areas. Mm-hmm. So it seemed like it is in the pharmaceutical sector that you were not satisfied with Lagos.
Not the pharmaceutical sector.
And with that, it looks like a whole lot has to be done. Now, the point there is, you were president of the Pharmaceutical Society. Mm-hmm. My question earlier was, how much of wooing or attracting of private sector investment into that area did you do? If you didn't get the attention from Lagos State, what else did you do in that regard?
That's what I just reported. I just gave you a scorecard. That when Lagos appears not to be considering grounds in those areas, I mentioned Edo State. I mentioned Ebonyi.
Yeah, but why must it be state governments? Why not private sector investment?
Because land use, you are familiar with the Land Use Act. All land is vested, the ownership of land is vested in government, state governments. Yeah. So it has to be government. And that's why I said that is a very critical factor. The other level is that, look, it's not just even about land. Critical infrastructure, access to the land, road facilities, water. These are things that you must consider. Generally, you would argue, if you're looking at the industry or industrial revolution, you won't cite an industry in Victoria Island or a co-Atlantic city. So usually you want to cite it in rural areas because for reasons of common sense, cost is a lot reduced in those places. So the way housing is a very strategic part of the planning of the Lagos State government. I mean, I see housing estates in a number of places. You must run these things pari passu. They must come together. Lagos, and that's why you need to talk to people. You cannot sit down in the Oval Office in Alausa or the State House in Marina and get all of these inputs. You must learn to get out of the normal consultations with your EXCO members or political allies if we're going to make a lot of progress. I do not want to be a politician. And there are a lot of other people like that. But there is value-added service you can bring to bear, even when I do not want to wear the toga of an APC, a patriarch, or chieftain. So, what we are saying, therefore, is this. Look, there are challenges, there are areas of challenges that Lagos State government needs to address. Fortunately, I believe it has more days to straighten those things because we cannot afford to bring intellectual dwarfs and Lilliputians. We cannot afford to allow, God forbid, to come and run Lagos.
So what do you think, stemming from what you said earlier with regards to how the presidential election went, what do you think will shape the governorship election come the 18th?
It is very important. Governor Sanwo-Olu must talk to the right people. In fact, I think the starting point for me is that Governor Sanwo-Olu needs to address the people of Lagos State. He needs a wide range of promises covering comprehensive reforms in taxes. Like I said, that is a major area where people have issues, or like they say on the street, beef against this government.
Quickly?
Oh yes, because there's too much impunity. And you see, the public servants around here, I do not want to say certain things on here, But I mean, it's not, nobody comes to a place like this and you say everything. You need a lot of reforms. Tax, your tariffs, building plan approvals. For one floor development in Etiosa, the last time I checked was about 1.5 million for approvals. It's crazy. We're trying to build a property, 7 floors, for the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. I remember the cost that was, the building plan approval paid to Lagos State government was almost 25 million fees. I know Lagos State government needs money. I am one of the people who also tell people that Lagos did not just become its biggest or largest economy in Africa. I mean, in 1999, when Marwa was leaving, I remember very well that internally generated revenue in Lagos was about 600 million. Today, it's about 50, 70 billion range. So, Governor Sanwo-Olu needs far-reaching reforms to cover those areas. 2, please, just give me 30
Also,
seconds.
I said you need to quickly wrap up because
The
our
youths
time
that
is
you
up.
talked about,
Yeah.
he needs rules of engagement.
All right.
As many town hall meetings as possible in the days ahead with the youths on how you can make them a lot more relevant in the scheme of things.
All right.
They
we have to
feel
leave the conversation
relegated and we must do something
here
about
now.
it.
All right.